What's up, everyone? Happy college football Saturday. We got ourselves a stacked Saturday slate right now as I see Baylor and SMU in double overtime. Just wanted to come on real quick. I am your host, Nick Urias, here on another live edition of the Sports Sentiment Podcast. Just wanted to come on just very quickly, give some thoughts on San Jose State and Texas as that game goes final. San Jose State falls 38-7 in Austin, Texas against number 7 Texas Longhorns. I mean, this was a game for San Jose State that we all knew was going to be a very difficult one. Uh, you know, Catching nearly 5 touchdowns in this one, and overall, just some general, I guess, talking points. I mean, look, there was some flashes from San Jose State in this one, and then there was some like a lot of what we saw in week one, right? And just first and foremost, this is the best opponent that San Jose State's going to be going up against. And I completely understand that there's frustration all around, just the way that the offense played, some spurts and where the defense played, some special teams mishaps, which I think at some point will get addressed. But look, San Jose State's 0-2. You dropped the Central Michigan game that you shouldn't have lost, and you lose this game in Texas. You ended up scoring the touchdown, courtesy of Jabari Bates. But outside of that, it was kind of just like this roller coaster ride. Like, we're making some plays and then we're not. I just first and foremost, I thought San Jose State's defense, despite giving up the 38 points, played good in some situations and in some certain down and distances in this game. I know it might not look anything bright from a statistical and scoreboard standpoint, but I thought that defense was playing hard out there. Which Derek Odom and his defense, they always play hard, and there doesn't matter what circumstance that they're in. Even though they might miss some tackles here and there, they're going to still go out there no matter what the scoreboard is, and they're going to still go out there and, give it all they got. And, I guess, for San Jose State, I guess that was my number one thing here, with them heading into this game is that, just get out of here alive. And, just because as much as you want to win this game, the goals for this team go beyond, just pulling off an upset in Texas. This team has their eyes set on a Mountain West championship. And, they're more than capable of doing it. I know the 2-game sample size from what we've seen so far from all 3 phases might not necessarily be there right now. But, this is why you have tough games on your non-conference schedule. Situations when you have like the Central Michigan team that just pounds the rock because you learn about your team. And, for San Jose State, like, I know they got the Larry Turner Gooden, punch out late in the Jordan Pollard recovery. But they were forcing Arch Manning into some uncomfortable situations. Credit to Derek Odom. He came out of the halftime locker room and he's like, you know what, let's put some pressure on Arch Manning. And, in certain spots it was working. And, I give him a lot of credit for, making some adjustments there, because you could very easily just say, you know what, the hell with this. The scoreboard is not looking good. The offense is not putting up the production that they should, just given the talent and, all the production that they have. And that defense just still came out there and battled. I mean, the defensive line was out there making plays. No Fafana was getting some pressure up the middle. He was hyped up on, one of the goal line stops. I think it was first and goal later in this game, like in the third quarter. And, they were still down several possessions in that one. So, obviously, it's not the greatest look from a scoreboard standpoint, but they still went out there and battled. They forced Arch Manning, like I said, into some uncomfortable situations. There was one throw that Arch made, and it was like, wow, he really attempted this. It was the, on the front right pylon of the end zone there when he was going to, and I forget the intended receiver he's going for, but Jalen Applett Williams read it perfectly, and then he's scampering down the sideline for a massive return. So, they forced Arch into some bad decisions, and maybe some of that is, just the inexperience of Arch Manning. But I thought Derek Odom and company did some things in this game that they can hang their hat on and be like, hey, we can carry this over into a bye week, which I think will be very important for this team. Not only because they're 0-2, but they just kind of get to recollect everything. Look at the tape. Because I do think there was some good things on the tape. I'd say more so from a defensive perspective than offensively. But there were still some good things out there that SJSU did, and I understand the fan base doesn't want any moral victories right now. But this, just given the circumstance of this game, it could have been a whole lot worse. So a 38-7 final to number 7 Texas. I mean, it was obviously better than what the wise guys in Vegas projected. But let's talk about some things offensively here. Walker Eget, 21 for 42, 188 yards, no touchdowns and an interception. There was some plays on the opening drive, right? I tweeted it out, and I was honestly pretty not shocked at the decision, like from like Walker Eget in a sense. I was more so shocked by the reaction of Coach Ken. It was a third down and like 5, I believe it was. Walker Eget's flushed out of the pocket, forced him to kind of make a play, which we've seen Walker. He might not have the greatest legs. He's a big guy. He could definitely use his size to his advantage. But Walker definitely has, the outside the pocket presence to go out and extend a play and make it. I know a lot of those plays haven't really, so far this season, haven't really turned into much. But, that third down play, Walker should have just thrown the ball into the ground. They were already in field goal range. He runs out of bounds, takes a 6-yard loss. I mean, just throw it in the dirt, throw it into the turf. That was a mistake by his end. He completely understood it, but I was shocked by the Coach Ken reaction because Coach Ken Niumatalolo, I've talked to him a bunch. The fan base, if you want, obviously the fan base knows this guy. He is a very level-headed individual. Very soft-spoken. Does not get too high for the highs, not too low for the lows. A lot of coaches won't have reactions to plays and stuff. But that was pretty shocking that Coach Ken just came and walked straight up to Walker and said, hey, starts chewing him out, starts yelling. And, I think, I'm obviously not in the room, but like, I think Coach Ken and Walker have that rapport and chemistry now, like as a one-on-one, as a coach and as a starting quarterback, like, hey, you got to be better. And, they could talk about those difficult decisions. There's no doubt. I mean, Coach Ken said, hey, Walker's texting me at 1:30 in the morning after the loss saying, hey, this is on me, for after the Central Michigan game. So I was just more shocked of the reaction from Coach Ken because it takes a lot for him to get like that. And I would, maybe that's the appropriate reaction. I mean, you could totally, make the judgment in that moment because I think there is some frustration brewing, just with amongst this offense. They have the capabilities to be so much better. There is no doubt about it. I know they had some wide receiver injuries today. Malachi Riley was not available. Matthew Coleman didn't register a ball. I think strategically they were trying to keep him out. Like, hey, we're going to sit you out here versus Texas. I did see him dressed out, but in uniform. But I think it was one of those decisions like, hey, let's just not flush him out here in this type of atmosphere with this defense. Give him a couple this week and the bye week to rest before you come play the Idaho Vandals back in San Jose. But, just that reaction kind of sparked me because I haven't seen Coach Ken Niumatalolo that fired up since the Oregon State game last year. Nick Nash was talking about him flipping tables pregame or at halftime, whatever it was. And, there was just some moments in that Oregon State game last year where he's talking to the refs and chewing them out. And, if anyone remembers that game, there was not the greatest of officiating in that one. So, Coach Ken will definitely speak his mind when he has to, but when it does come out as explosive and vocal, I mean, it speaks volume. So I think it was just maybe some frustration boiling, maybe from last week and into the opening drive this week, especially given the opponent, right? You cannot, you literally have to come in here and play perfect against the Texas Longhorns if you even want a shot at winning. And you saw it in a game like this. I mean, they had this Spartan team today, 3 fumbles, all 3 of them lost. They had an interception by Walker Eget, and they had 2 turnovers on downs, which obviously you're not going to win any football games playing like that. So the turnovers have been, an issue, I would say, for quite some time now, even going back to last year, especially the way the loss looked last week. But now, like, we're getting to a point now where, like, this is starting to become an issue, and it's not just on Walker Eget. It's on everybody, right? We saw last year, like, some wide receivers getting the ball punched out. Just ball security from the running backs, the wide receivers with the yards after the catch. There's just tons of plays out there that this offense needs to correct, and I think it's just simple fundamentals. They just need to get back to the basics. Walker Eget to Danny Scudero today. There was some plays out there where, quite frankly, I think Danny was even frustrated, like, especially on the 4th down plays. Like, there was I think a 3rd down and a 4th down play, like a 4th and 9, where Scudero was one-on-one. Like, he got a lot of one-on-ones today with Littleton because they were doubling him in certain spots, especially after he made a play. And Scudero got the one-on-ones with Littleton, and he was winning them too. And I know he's like a 4 or 5 star. He's only a true freshman, but this was a guy that was shutting down Jeremiah Smith last week. And Smith did practically nothing in that game. Obviously the big time tilt between the Buckeyes and the Longhorns. So Scudero was winning those one-on-ones. And I think it was just frustrating for him because they'd get one-on-one on the outside, and he'd go out and beat his man, like the double move in the first quarter on the was it the opening drive or one of the first couple drives in the game. And it's just like, man, and Walker overthrew him. Like, that is a connection that needs to be delivered, especially in a game like this, right, where you're only going to have very few plays and very few opportunities to have something like that. Right? Just because this Texas Longhorns defense, not only the best defense you're going to see all year, but if you're San Jose State, but this is a national championship level defense. Like, there is tons of NFL guys on this defense. And some of them are young, but some of them have been around. Like Michael Taft, the safety. He'll be playing on Sundays, right? The Hill, the linebacker, Littleton, I expect, to be a high prized possession in the NFL draft in a couple of years. Like, there is just tons of guys that are be playing on Sundays here. And, it was a good test, but, there's only so many opportunities that you're going to get, against a defense of this caliber. So I think that was a little bit frustrating from their standpoint. You could kind of see Coach Stutzman on the sidelines kind of like, man, like, we got to hit that. And, they're just kind of like, a little frowny face and frustration. Like, man, we're only going to maybe get this 2 or 3 times this game, just given, how talented these defensive backs are. So you could kind of see the frustration all around in that perspective. But Scudero, 7 receptions, 66 yards. Hill kind of punched the ball out. I say kind of because he kind of got a lot of Scudero's head in that fumble. I mean, should have been a personal foul. I would have probably said yes. It's one of those tough plays. We did have an SEC crew today, so you could make whatever you want of that. And just overall, the Leland Smith catch, or that wasn't a catch. They ruled it a catch at first, and then replay overturned it. It was one of those plays where I'm shocked that they overturned it, simply because they had the call on the field was a catch. So that was a little bit surprising, but man, I've that was going viral on Twitter for a few minutes there. Just because like he's catching it off his helmet, he's getting absolutely smothered, and it looked like he came down with it. But I guess they didn't deem it as control. Despite it, his hand contracting with the DB's helmet there. So that was a tough play, but regardless, one hell of an effort from him. Kyrie Scholes was kind of the featured wide receiver today. 8 receptions, 73 yards. Like and I have to go look back on this, but 4 receptions came on the scoring drive. Like 4 of those 8 catches came on the scoring drive, which I think is a good sign, just for this team as a whole. They need another wide receiver because it's going to get to the point now where Scudero is so high on the scouting report for this team. Like he's going to turn into like Nick Nash on the scouting report. And not that I'm saying that Scudero is Nick Nash, but he is high valued right now as Nick Nash to opposing defensive coordinators. Just given the target share and just the amount of receptions that he is snagging right now for this team on offense is pretty remarkable. So having a guy like Kyrie Scholes out there and, producing, Coach Ken has talked highly of Kyrie Scholes, like, hey, this could be another complimentary guy that helps us out a bunch this year. Just given the Malachi Riley and Matthew Coleman absence, I thought that was important for him to emerge in a game like this, and he'll get better from it. So, that was definitely, I would say, a positive sign on the offensive side that like, hey, we're starting to get another weapon comfortable in this thing. And Walker Eget, like you saw on that drive, and he led the team in receptions today with 8. That it's like, hey, they're giving him the soft coverage and he's open. So let's just go out there and feed him. And we already know the spread and shred offense is very much of a, hey, simple concept. Go catch us an 8-yard, dig or whatever it may be, and go get us 20 yards after the catch. And Scholes was doing that to his credit. So, that is something you can hang your hat on this game. SJSU ran the ball 29 times. They ran the ball more than as far as, just 29 rushes to 21 receptions by amongst the wide receivers. So I know some people out there will be happy about that. I know it was one of those games where, you don't want Walker Eget to get killed, just given the pass rush. The offensive line did as good as they could in a spot like this. But when you got those type of athletes, just coming downhill at you, I mean, they had to protect Walker in this game because you just can't afford, the starting quarterback to get hurt in a game like this. And especially when the score was starting to, get out of hand there. But, credit to this team I would say in the first quarter, the first couple drives, because they were forcing Arch Manning into some uncomfortable situations. I mean, they had this thing 0-0 for a long while. And it was kind of one of those points where like, hey, you're in field goal range and you missed the field goal. And there was just kind of those opportunities. And then it was 0-0 for long enough. And SJSU wasn't, just making enough plays where it's like, okay, now you're starting to see the floodgates open. And there was only so much this defense was going to be able to do, especially the way the offense was stalling in the first half. Like they just needed a break. So, just given the situation on that, I don't hate the defense's performance. There was busted coverages in this game. Like obviously when you got a guy like Parker Livingston, who has an 83-yard explosive, there's miscommunication there. 4 receptions, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns for Parker Livingston, who really looked good out there. Like that's a really good wide receiver. He's not going to kill you with the speed, but that's just a guy like that. There was a catch that I know that got called back for him, and he went out there and I think beat Jalen Boehner out in coverage. And it's like, wow, Like that's why you're the wide receiver 1/2 on the Texas Longhorns, right? So Livingston looked good out there. Jack Injuries, kind of busted one open. Both of his catches, he had 2 receptions for 52 yards. Both of them were kind of miscommunications on the Spartans' end. They had a wide receiver injury in this one. DeAndre Moore Jr., that's no good, which you don't root for any injuries on any side. That's why when I went on the Texas shows this week, I was just all like, hey, what you hope to get out of this game is, just to learn a little bit more about yourself and, for San Jose State, get exposed into an environment like this because it will help you in Mountain West play. Not that some of those guys, weren't accustomed to that because this is a veteran heavy team, but just to go against that kind of talent, it could help them. So look, Texas lost some bodies in this one, and I think you kind of saw like towards the back end. It's like, okay, like the scoreboard is where it is. We already have DeAndre Moore hurt. Michael Taff is limping off after he makes a tackle. One of their other guys defensively. Oh yeah, their edge, Colin Simmons. That one didn't look really too good either. Will they need him in versus UTEP and Sam Houston State next week? I mean, you definitely like them on the field, but it's definitely not like code red if those guys don't play. You'd much rather have them for like the Red River Showdown versus Oklahoma and things like that. But as far as this thing goes, let's talk about the special teams. Because I know there's been a lot of people out there that have been frustrated about the special teams. I mean, Dennis Lynch has definitely struggled. He went 0 for 2 today on field goals. It's 0 for 4 on the season. We'll see where Coach Ken and company go with this because this was a competitive battle at camp, right? And him and Matthias Brown were battling this thing out for the back end of this. It's, I would say, a little bit shocking just given the fact that, Dennis Lynch is struggling because this was a guy that didn't kick last year, but has the range to make a kick like that. And we already know when it comes to, the kicker situation, it's all about confidence, right? If you'll see, like, I know, just being out here in the Bay Area and such, like a guy like, what's his face? Jake Moody, right? You kind of just see it like, the confidence, you could just read it on his face. And the kicking position has a lot to do with, do you believe in self and can you trust yourself to go boot it out there? And I know that sounds cliche and dumb and all of that, but that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, we'll see what Coach Ken and company do coming out of the bye week. I imagine somebody's going to ask about it. But Coach Ken said following Central Michigan, that, that's a guy that he trusts. So does that, I guess, situation and, sentiment change, I guess, to the point where, hey, like, we're gonna go elsewhere. I mean, this was a guy that they did go out in the portal after Kyler Halverson, graduated and is trying to do some stuff at the next level. But I think it's an important talking point right now. Just given his struggles and you're gonna have to make some big kicks down the road, right? Once when you get into Mountain West play, it's one of these situations where, for San Jose State, I don't want to say there's no reason to hit the panic button, but this stuff needs to get addressed and it has to get better. That's why I think the week 3 bye will be important because I think they will be able to address some of these needs, like the field goal kicker, just like Walker Egan and his decision making. There's plenty of other things, right? The missed tackling. On the Spartan side, defensively. I thought Trent Carasosa did some good things today. I know, he's just out there to punt and flip the field. But he was, out there, kicking out there when he needed to. And, that's a guy that's gotten a whole lot better from where he was week one, right? Because he was competing for a spot, and it was an alternating back and forth. And now you're seeing that he's on watch lists now, for certain spots, just insert, he's on award watch lists, excuse me, just given, what he's done out there and flipping the field. So I know no one wants to talk about punters, but that I feel like that's something that does need to get recognized. Like, hey, he's going out there and he's doing his job. And hey, that's a guy that deserves some recognition. I feel like, but I thought San Jose State, as a whole in this game, they did some good things, they did some bad things, right? I think more importantly, from an offensive standpoint, just because we already know that, just the offensive production that this team had last year, there is a whole lot more left to be desired here. And, Coach Ken will tell you that. Craig Stutzman will tell you that. It all starts with the turnovers, though. If this team could have 0 turnovers on the board, and I know it's just simple football, but especially given the way this offense navigates and just their up-tempo style, you can't turn over the ball. And because it's one of these things, because of their quick strike ability to score, and I know we haven't seen it yet this year, but it came up a lot last year, with this Spartan squad, that they would almost score too quick and they'd give the team the ball back. And then when you're given teams extra possessions, it's just you're putting yourself in a hole that you really don't need to put yourself in. So from the Spartans perspective, that definitely has to get better. Can it correct itself? Of course it can. They, given that they have to make some changes, or if certain things happen, I don't think it's one of these things where, like, hey, Walker hasn't played the greatest 2 games in the world, that you have to go all of a sudden and pull the plug. I think Walker Egot's got himself a long leash, just with this team. Not because, like, he's long existing within this program and such, but just because it's a situation with the other guys where there's just not a whole lot of experience out there. Xavier Ward has hardly played, and I know he's an upperclassman. And you got Robert McDaniel, and that came from UCLA, but he is still a freshman. And you got Tama Amasone, who they've only rolled out, they've rolled him out back-to-back weeks for, that Wildcat package. And by the way, they rolled him out there at the good time, because I personally thought that we weren't going to see it this game, just given the Texas front, but they put Tama out there, and they handed it right up the gut to Jabari Bates. And I don't think maybe Texas saw that coming. I think they were like, okay, this is a QB keeper all the way. So yeah, that was definitely a good play call and scheme in that spot, by Coach Stutzman and company, and that's how they get their only score on the board. But yeah, there's no doubt, there's some frustrations right now. The team's 0-2. But I think the week 3 bye will help for this team. And, when you got a team like the Idaho Vandals, which, by the way, I don't know who Idaho plays today. I'll try to get my eyes on some games on their game, and next week their game. But Idaho played very close versus Washington State, 13-10. They lost there in Pullman in the Battle of the Palouse. So that's definitely like one of those games. It's not like, your typical FCS cupcake. Like we said, like Sac State was a good challenge for this team last year. It's not like when they played Cal Poly like 2 years ago, and it's like, okay, this is the flex our muscles game, and we're going to win 52-0. Idaho, I know they have a complete roster overhaul and makeover and new coaches all around. That is still, that is still a tough team that's got some really good history, for some time, over the past, couple years. So I think I'm not going to say it's going to be a challenge. Hopefully, it's not a challenge for that team. But it's not one of the laughable FCS teams, if you will, where it's like, okay, we're not going to learn a thing about our team in a sense, and it's a complete mismatch out there. I do think they could figure some stuff out against that FCS Idaho Vandal team coming out of the bye. So we'll see how that all of that works out. Yeah, I see some people in our comment section about what's wrong with Lynch. He came from USC. Yeah, Lynch has struggled. 0 for 4. I kind of already addressed the Dennis Lynch situation, but I mean, it's definitely a situation where you wouldn't be surprised if they throw Matthias Brown out there in some spots. Well, certain. I imagine Coach Ken will get asked about it after the game, and maybe that's a direction they do go, but I don't know. The kicks have been way off. That's for sure. So I wouldn't be shocked if they flirt with it, no doubt. Walker Eget has regressed, and that's another comment of ours. I mean, Walker hasn't played great. I would totally. Walker Eget has definitely regressed from what he had last year. I do think, to his defense, he's had 2 wide receivers get banged up in Coleman and Riley. There's for sure Scudero has helped him out a bunch, improve his stats and make him look better on the field. But Leland Smith is a guy, I know he's had 2 fantastic catches, but he's got to go out there and get open for himself as well. So, I think all around the offense has to play better. I think if, and I know a lot of people have been crying about this, like, man, if we could get a consistent run game, things will open up. I totally agree. So we'll see if this team just turns into a much more balanced as far as run and pass. Where I'm not expecting, and I don't think fans are expecting 50-50 as far as pass and run. But last year it was to the point where it was like 90% pass, 10% run. And I think that's even being kind. Like, it was almost 95% pass, 5% run. And it was almost like when they ran last year, it was almost just like a change of pace, just to see where they're at. Like, hey, our wide receivers are tired. Let's just run the ball here on 1st and 10. That was kind of like almost, the only time that they would run the ball in that situation. So, up front, they got to do some things better because, Floyd Chalk doesn't have too many holes. Whether I wasn't expecting it today. I said on the game preview, I wouldn't expect San Jose State, to have any success running the ball in this one. I mean, they ran the ball 29 times for 85 yards, which I would say, and for the touchdown, averaging 3 yards a carry. So definitely better. I mean, if you run the ball, Floyd is more than capable of popping you a run. Like, we've seen that in the very limited sample size when they have ran the ball. So I think that's something that they do need to rely on. I'm with everybody else on that. It's just we'll see what happens in regards to that, because Coach Stutzman has been saying that for quite some time, and to the point where hey, we want to run the ball, and this is something that we do want to have in our toolbox, but this is the scheme, everybody, and the scheme is pass heavy, and it's the run and shoot, and not the run and shoot entirely, but it is that air raid type offense where they're only going to run the ball so much. And that's just the way Craig Stutzman has, this offense, aligned and installed, where, you're not going to get this team that runs the ball, 32 times a game, unless they're up by several scores and just trying to drill the clock. So I get it. There's frustration right now. But I will say this, expectations were high for this team. You certainly weren't expecting to win this game today. I know that the Central Michigan one lost is a little bit more of a head scratcher, but I thought the defense, like I said earlier, played good in certain situations today. Like they were, I thought they were going to get killed on the ground today, San Jose State, just given what was the performance last week against Central Michigan. But they, still came out there and, when the game was close because Texas was running the ball. I mean, they had a lot of, runs out there. But I mean, the numbers, I guess, don't generally, jump off the page to you. 32 carries for 155 yards and a touchdown. But there was spots last week, and there was situations today where the Spartan run defense, wasn't the best and wasn't the greatest. I know that sounds like a dumb response, but they were snuffing out and stiffing out the run there quite a bit in a lot of those especially in the first half and in the third quarter. Those numbers are where they're at just because the Spartans put some reserves in the back end of this game. And Weisner didn't play, so I think that has something to do with it. Their lead back, and Baxter went out there, got 13 carries for 64 yards, and Gibson, who had the fumble, had 7 carries for 38 yards. So there's the run defense. We're gonna see where it's at. When they play Stanford, that's the big one, right? I said this last week. I'm pretty sure I said this last week, but the team where you want to be right now is you need to see this team get back to, having their explosive output again. I think that's the number one thing here. If you can have a get right game versus Idaho, which I think you absolutely have to, like if you come out versus Idaho off the bye and win 17-7, then we might have a different conversation in 2 weeks saying, where is this team at? And, I think if they lose to Stanford, then I would say the sky is starting to fall on where we're at right now. But you're 0-2, and I know that might not sound like that doesn't sound great right now. But we saw this a couple of years back, 2 years ago with that team where San Jose State started out 0-2, 1-3, whatever it was. They didn't get off to the best start of the season, and then they caught fire towards the back end of the year. So it doesn't look good right now. But I think we all need to understand right now there is a whole lot of meat to the season here that has yet to be played, and things can get corrected. Guys are going to get healthier, and I think the coaching staff trusts and the roster that they've put together, to go out there and get some wins. So, this team loses 38-7. There was some good, there was some bad. There's some things that need to get evaluated heading into the bye week. But I think if you're 2-2, you beat Idaho by a sizable margin coming off the bye, and this offense starts looking better. And then the big one is Stanford, right? You're going to be in Palo Alto, that place I wouldn't expect to be rowdy. In fact, you can make a fair argument that there might be more SJSU fans than Stanford fans, just given the state of the program right now for the Cardinals, and just given the fact that they're in full on rebuild mode and the way that they've looked thus far. I think they've only played one game, so also we'll see what they look like versus BYU tonight. But I would expect that to be a long night out there in Provo tonight. But we'll see where they're at. If they're 2-2, I think the realistic expectations right now are come off the bye, win with margin against Idaho, come out against what right now may be seen, I don't want to say valued as a coin flip game. Hopefully for everybody involved, it's not. But if SJSU is 2-2 heading into league play, and you get that New Mexico team that looks pretty respectable right now, given that it's only a one. They playing Idaho State today right now. And, they looked, decent and, physically tough versus the Michigan Wolverines last week. There was some there's some talking points there like, hey, this conference schedule might be a little bit more difficult than what everybody anticipated on paper here. So we'll see where things are at, and we'll definitely be talking about the state of the team and where things are at right now during the bye week. We got a couple of things lined up right now, just to talk. We'll definitely be talking about this game again. I definitely want to get some other people's output on it on this platform. So we'll definitely do that. But hey, uh, the San Jose State and Texas was, if you're a Spartan fan, not the greatest today. But hey, um, I'm gonna go enjoy myself with some more college ball right now. I've had this Fresno State Oregon State game circled just to see where Fresno's at, because obviously that's a common opponent with SJSU that you're going to see at the end of the year. And that Oregon State team didn't look good last week. But from the few glimpses that I'm seeing here early, that Beaver defense looks a little bit better. So if you don't mind, we're gonna go watch that. Just wanted to come on here, very briefly. I know we're very briefly turns into a 40-minute nice little live here, but we're gonna go indulge into some more college ball and watch the rest of the Mountain West, just because that's what we do here. As much as we broadcast for SJSU and we do all of that fun stuff, behind the scenes for them, there's still plenty of other teams out there that spark my interest. So we're going to be signing off here right now. Thanks for everybody that tuned in live, dropping in our comment section. Appreciate everybody that for all the support that they give for the podcast. Everybody that tuned in here live, and everybody that checks us out later, appreciate y'all if you made it this far. And we'll be definitely talking live next week. We got some guests lined up on the show, on the podcast, not only for some live shows, but also just some videos and some previews and some predictions, and just talking college ball as a whole. So if you haven't already, comment, subscribe right here, YouTube. If you're checking this out on the audio, appreciate the love. And once again, I am your host, Nick Urias. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for everybody tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.